Hello, everybody. How is everyone doing today? Let's make a mic check. Is everybody hearing me okay? So, doing today. What's the audio like? I think the audio's coming through okay, isn't it? It's very good. If you're joining me live, just put a comment and let me know where are you joining me from. Good to see you, Taha. You okay? Are you able to hear me all right? Wa alaikum salam. Hello. Shall we make a start? Excellent. Video and audio are excellent. Very good. Thank you for your help. So, as always, welcome and hello. And thank you for joining me from the UAE, from the UK, from everybody and everywhere. Good to have you. We are, of course, streaming on a couple of platforms. And good, good, good. I like the comments. Very good. Keep the comments going. Please let me know if you have any questions or any clarifications or ideas, suggestions, whatever you want to leave in the comments makes me very happy. Thank you. And I would like this session to be as interactive as possible. So please, I encourage you to use the comment section. Give me your ideas and your questions. Start, please. Okay, we'll start. So if the audio and video are coming through, we've already checked this. Just let me know and we will give it a few seconds for more people to join us. Uh, Again, as always, we say we aim for an hour. We usually end up only just um, going over an hour and probably an hour and a couple of minutes. But I always try to aim to keep it under an hour, believe it or not. But it's good to have the interaction and the questions and the engagement. Brilliant. And let me know if you have worked on something interesting this week. I really want to hear from you and I want to learn from others out there. So tell me in the comments if you have worked on anything interesting, anything that you have learned, something new, a project that you feel has added to your portfolio, or have you developed any new skill? Have you attended a course or a beneficial event? Just let us know. And as always, welcome again to my live today about the traits of successful engineers and what makes some engineers more successful than others. Uh, this is an interesting topic, and it might sound like a very basic one, but it is the basics, that fail a lot of engineers, in my opinion and in my experience. I feel that people tend to give more attention to the big ticket items or things that they believe are important and neglect the fundamentals, the absolute basics. And these are the elements that I feel a lot of people need to pay more attention for or to. My name is Mohammed. I work as a director of design for Aureus. We specialize in substations and grid connections and work with distribution network operators, renewables, overhead lines, amongst other types of projects in the energy construction and, of course, beyond in the railway and in the highways. I have over 17 years of experience in substations, design, engineering management, and I was really lucky to work in different countries on different projects, on some of the biggest projects out there. So I consider myself really lucky. And I want to share the knowledge. Of course, I feel that there is something to learn from everybody, and there is something to also share with everyone. I believe more people should be doing this. We need to spread the knowledge and learn from each other. So I encourage you to please be active on LinkedIn. Share stuff about what you do, share your work, try to give us insights and tips on how to do different things, useful ideas that you found throughout your career as an engineer. And feel free to tag me or send me your posts. By all means, I will always interact and engage with good posts, that's for sure. So I'm always interested to learn about what people or what engineers are doing out there. And I want to connect with engineers. It's my number one growth or source of personal growth at the moment and professional growth, to learn what's happening out there, what people are working on, and all the developing that is happening in the industry. And I want to push myself, of course, and get myself out of my comfort zone and learn from others. So just share, please, if you've got any posts that you feel are useful or have got good information out there. Just let me know. Let's see in the comments, who do you follow on LinkedIn? Who's a good source of knowledge and information and mentorship and inspiration? Give me names. I would like to follow the same people that you follow and find, good ideas on engineering and good ideas for your careers. So let me know, who do you like on LinkedIn in terms of posts. And of course, this needs public speaking, as usual, needs as anything else, needs regular practice. This is why I'm doing this. So if you're joining me live, give me the thumbs up and write in the comments what pages of leaders or managers or engineers or whomever you feel are useful to follow on LinkedIn. I'm waiting for your recommendations. So today we will talk about the successful traits of engineers. I try to focus on electrical engineers. I try to also touch upon lead engineers, engineering managers, people who are working on substation projects, because that's my area of expertise. That's where I spent my career so far, and this is what I'm fascinated about. This is what I'm interested in. So this is what I like to talk about and discuss with people about. So today we're going to cover really basics and really fundamental personality aspects and traits uh, that make some engineers more successful than others, in my opinion and from experience. So we will touch upon very little things and we will try to delve into more detail to help everybody. And we'll answer questions. Of course, there are some questions already in the comments. That's great. If you have a question at any time, just put it in the comments and we will answer it live. Just as a disclaimer, when you ask a question, I will put it on the screen if you're okay with that. So please let me know if you have, of course, a question that you don't want to share. Feel free to drop that in the messages, or just say in the comment not to share, and I'll not share it on the screen. And what we were going to talk about, if you get to know these little things, then you can start being conscious of them, trying to apply them in your day-to-day, in your learning experience, in your developing as an engineer in your career. So we'll try to define very small actions that can be taken and are beneficial and are manageable to be really encouraging to take. So we're not going to talk about difficult things or things that are very, very challenging. We might do, of course, but we will always try to approach them in a simpler manner, in a simpler way. This is why we are having these sessions. And by the way, of course, the full recording of this video will be on Substack. So I want you to check out my newsletter on Substack. I think it is approaching 500 readers now, which is great. And that is where I share my videos, my resources. I'm going to release some templates soon, all for free. I don't want anybody to pay anything for that. But I'm going to release some useful resources out there that I use on a day-to-day basis in organizing my work and other insights. So make sure to check out my Substack and read the articles, raise comments, raise questions anytime. So we will discuss some personality traits, some features of successful engineers, the importance of them, and how they contribute to success in the engineering profession. We will also try to cover a lot of these. Probably we'll try to go over 10 of these traits if time allows today. But mainly we will examine each one individually, separately, in enough detail today, or as much as time allows us to do, from 5 different angles, in my opinion. So the first one would be to explore these qualities or features. And it's very important to define the nature. As always, I say it's important to agree on definitions, or at least discuss the definitions, so that we know the extent of what we're talking about. So what are these features? What are the characteristics that you will find in common in successful engineers? And we will also cover the importance of these features. When I'm looking this way, I'm just looking at the video quality, so don't be alarmed, please. But it's mostly about the video quality and the questions, the chat on LinkedIn. So other platforms, unfortunately, I have to go and switch windows to the streaming application to find out. But back to the topic of today, we'll delve on into the importance of each of those traits and the obstacles that we face if we do not learn or develop those traits as engineers. We'll also get to give some practical insights on how to develop and how to learn and how to pick up these traits as engineers. Where can we develop them? What kind of situation or environments would offer us those kind of developing opportunities? And we will then move on to the common mistakes and problems we face as engineers when we don't pay attention to these traits, or when we don't develop these different traits. And what kind of difficulties do engineers face who lack those traits? And of course, not everybody is alike. I know, I understand that people have different backgrounds, different cultures, different professional circumstances, and all sorts as engineers. But at the end of the day, there are common trends, there are common themes. And when you deal with many engineers, when you deal with many projects in many situations over the years, you tend to find these trends, and you tend to identify with these kind of themes, common themes between the successful people and successful engineers. And then finally, we will also go through how developing these traits will help you in your career. We're going to explore these different 5 angles or more. Sometimes we'll go into 7 aspects of each of those features. But mostly we'll try to give examples, practical examples. We will also try to ask ourselves questions to try to identify how mature are we in terms of the levels of attaining that trait. And we will try to give also advice on how to identify and notice the obstacles and how to resolve issues and problems we come across in order to develop. So, my first feature for today that I want to be talking about, and it was a subject of a very, very popular video we had on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, which is analytical thinking skills and engineers being analytical. And it's very interesting. I think it has been the most popular video in the last few months. Interestingly, a lot of people are finding it useful and have given me good feedback on. But this makes me more and more interested about this uh, because I feel that it might it might mean, or it does mean, that people are realizing that analytical thinking skills are important. And I think, from what I can see and from what I've seen, successful engineers are always able to seamlessly appear analytical. They just exhibit that trait very easily. It comes to them naturally. Of course, whether it came to them naturally growing up, you never know, or whether they had to develop that over the years, that's probably like it. It's more the latter than the former, I believe. But successful engineers are always able to dissect bigger problems into smaller ones. They're able to break down big topics or issues into smaller, manageable parts. And a quick example about that would be if you're at work and you face a problem, and you might feel that it's an overwhelming problem, it's unsolvable, nobody has attempted this before. But if you attempt to break it down into smaller objectives that could be addressed, and we talked about this in the previous videos, then you will find that it is more manageable. And this is what successful engineers do. They can break down big projects into manageable tasks that can be taken or even distributed and involving others very easily and clearly. And this is why they get more done, and they get more done successfully. And that helps them or fuels their growth. So without analytical thinking, you will tend to get stuck quite a lot. And without breaking down things into manageable parts, you will struggle to accomplish as much as others who do. And as a result, you won't, of course, progress as far. This is very, very common. It happens all the time. It is one of the biggest obstacles that I see people facing, engineers facing. And on the other hand, the benefits of recognizing and utilizing analytical thinking and breaking down of bigger topics into smaller, manageable tasks is that it is much easier to deal with the smaller tasks. It is much easier to deal with manageable, smaller parts than approaching the whole big problem as a whole. And it becomes faster and more organized, more methodological, and easier to solve. So that all benefits you as an engineer. Now, when we're trying to learn analytical thinking, and again, we've covered all this or a lot of this in the previous video, you could struggle to know where to start. And people always struggle to know where to start because there might be not enough clear guidance out there about these aspects. So, not knowing how to approach it, because it might seem like something that is unnatural to you. It might not come naturally to some of us. It might be a thing that requires more effort. You need to sit down, you need to think of something and consider it a number of times and repeat that process and break it down. So it can be something that is not as easy. And in the beginning, you can find it to be uneasy to adopt as a thinking way. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you find it easy? Do you find it difficult? Does it come to you naturally? Did you take any courses to develop that? And how did you also find the last video we talked about that analytical skills and breaking down bigger concepts into smaller ones? But in order to learn it, you have to seek different, I believe, different training avenues. It's not just a course, but it's also on the job. And as a matter of fact, try to apply it outside of your job as well, in your day to day life, in volunteering opportunities. I find volunteering very, very, very useful. It helps, sometimes it helps more than a professional setting because it's far more relaxed. It's for the good. It's very, very satisfying. And it's just a different kind of exposure. So you have to seek different training avenues for that. You have to seek the different learning opportunities to develop these traits. And there are different courses out there. You, my advice to you would be to take and try one at a time. Anyone, just pick one and try it. Apply it. Make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself with many courses in parallel because that's one of the very big and common mistakes that due to the abundance of information out there, we tend to perhaps think of many avenues at the same time, which is not favorable. We can always just try to look at something at once or on its own to begin with. That will be far much easier and far much manageable. And of course, you gotta, a lot of people are now um, kind of enjoying and getting, let's say, sidetracked by the actual course, thinking that attending the course would be the learning opportunity. No, it's actually the applying. Getting exposure to the material is only 10-20% of the learning process, but applying is what takes you to the full 100%. So don't overwhelm yourself um, with with many courses in parallel. Take your time to apply learnings and practice in your everyday work and everyday op- opportunities and interactions. Now, where are the places to develop analytical skills? We talked about that in the previous video, of course, but it's always all about picking the right environment as an engineer. So that environment is where you're allowed to grow, you're allowed to experiment, you're allowed to, dare I say it, fail in a way, in a manageable way, of course. And I know it's a tricky word to use, but in places where you feel, or in workplaces where you feel psychologically safe to make and try these new opportunities to learn from. And in a controlled environment, of course, it can be the very perfect environment for you to learn in. Volunteering in community projects as well outside of your work, especially working in teams, especially working on troubleshooting something for the community, helping people who need the help, and or just doing something for the good, for the collective good, that also will help you. And this is where you can practice some of these analytical thinking skills and techniques to try and find solutions for common problems and try and make things work in that way. And if you ever wonder whether you have that skill or ability or trait, you can start by asking yourself some questions. First of all, you need to observe yourself. Do you find yourself breaking down things into smaller steps? Do you find yourself making lists quite often? Do you find yourself tending to segregate your tasks, your emails, even when you're writing an email, do you break down visually and very clearly the elements of your email and what you're trying to say? These are all signs that you have a good level of analytical thinking. So let me know in the comments if you agree or if you have any questions. Now, the next or the second most important trait, in my opinion, and this is a controversial one, is engineers who are successful are usually detail orientated. And before people jump and tell me that this is one of the problems with engineers, they're into the detail, actually, it's the other way around. Being in the detail is the engineer's job. So the more aware they are of the details of their work and the different aspects and impacts and um, implications of the details and the considerations needed around these details of their work, the more they know about that, the more they are competent as an engineer. Now, when it comes to communication, that's a separate topic, but or communicating about details, you need to, of course, pitch your message at the right level. That's something else. But how deep is the engineer's knowledge about a certain technical aspect of their work is what defines how detail orientated they are and how small can you go when considering a certain element of your work. These are all, for me, signs of a successful engineer. Successful engineers can consider their work and elements and aspects of their work in more detail from different aspects, different angles, different interfaces, you name it. So they do have um, a lot of depth or ability to go deeper into the different aspects of their work, but also in breadth. So details are in a discipline, but also across disciplines. And that's what makes a successful engineer. So I'm just trying to look at the questions here. Do we have any more questions? Can anybody tell me if there are questions? I can't see. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Fine. If you don't mind, I'll get to the questions next after I'm done with this point. So we could, if we would take an example of detail orientation, I mean, we can talk about somebody, for example, working on an earthing. I don't know why I jumped to my mind, but an earthing um, design, and that engineer might know a typical number of connection types for a certain application, for a certain connection to a certain piece of equipment on a certain layout, on a certain voltage level or grid for an application. So these are like things that, for instance, a good designer would know. So they would know these details. They would know the implications of changing something related to these details on the project as a whole, but also on that piece of the work. And there's a lot of obstacles that make this important because, as a start, people frown upon working in some working cultures. People frown upon being in the details, not able to see a holistic view versus talking about the details, and that could be a tricky thing. But in most cases, as an engineer, knowing the details is important. I say knowing. I don't say um, bringing up the details at every occasion or every situation, but it's important. So a lot of people, unfortunately, jump around and not finish their work, move companies. Not not here to criticize anybody, but a lot of people do that, and when they do that, they really miss out on realizing the extent of their work. So they don't really know what the impact of their decisions or what they worked on ended up being or affecting. And that is a detail that is missing for a lot of people. And of course, on the other hand, the people who know about the detail, the engineers who are very competent when it comes to the details associated with their work or their elements of their work, are the ones who know and can cover all aspects comfortably. And that means when they are assigned a task or part of the work or a job, they are most probably going to finish on time because they make less mistakes. They also deliver to the requirement because they understand the different aspects related to every detail when it comes to the requirement and how it affects each other and how it affects the whole system as a whole. And they continue, of course, building success upon the next job, onto the next job, and uh, their progress just carries on. It's fueled by successes. So they fail less because they make less mistakes because they are more aware of the details and the implications around the details of their work. Now, when we're trying to learn the details as engineers, especially in design or in other roles that have got different aspects to them or many more aspects to them, it can be a complex family of jobs in design or site based roles. So it can be very difficult to learn the details correctly in the right way because it can be challenging to find the right good technical mentor. There's a lot of good technical engineers out there, very competent, but not everybody can or is able to transfer knowledge, to mentor and teach the next generation of engineers. And learning the details, of course. So it's important to be able to, you consider yourself lucky if you find that person, if you can learn from them. And learning the details, of course, the second biggest obstacle is that learning the details takes time, takes effort, and a lot of us are impatient. A lot of us, I'm certainly an impatient person. I found it always challenging for me to instill patience in myself. And of course, the third obstacle in this instance would be that learning the details needs you to sustain a long periods of focusing on a certain aspect. Now, of course, this can be very boring, yes, and as a matter of fact, naturally now we are all experiencing an ever shortening of attention span. So that can be the challenge in the modern workplace as well and modern life as we know it. So how do people become detail orientated and perfect their details and know about their details as engineers? Well, first of all, you need to study the theory, and this is where a lot of people maybe miss on. A lot of people think that education is outdated. It's it's not something as modern or contemporary, and they feel that it's unnecessary. Everything you could learn is practical. I don't think so. I don't believe so. I think it's very important to study the theory. And unfortunately, you need to be in a sort of an academic setting or with some sort of access to an academic setting, which can be online. There's nothing wrong with that, and can be freely available. There are, um, those training courses, educational courses everywhere, and information is available in abundance. So also two-edged sword, really, or double-edged sword. But it's important to study the theory. Nonetheless, you need to study the theory. You need to understand about the phenomenon and the mechanics, the physics underlying, behind, or beneath your work. So cause and effect, what changes might induce what results and in what way. So these are all little details, and they can They can be learned when you do more, when you deliver more, and also, of course, experience more, but diversify your experience. So, working on bigger projects, working in different environments, working in different countries, different markets, different industries, you name it. Everything different that you could diversify in your exposure as an engineer would open your eyes to something new. Where can you develop attention to detail and knowledge of the detail and being detail orientated? Well, again, it's in the right working environment, but in certain jobs where it is really what I call a manual engineering job, where you are designing something or working on examining something very closely. And this is where you learn the detail. So a perfect job would that for that would be as a designer for many years, for a few years, or for many years, as much as you can take it, of course, but also as a testing engineer, as a site-based engineer, someone who's involved with construction, someone who's involved with testing and commissioning. I feel that design, testing and commissioning, construction, these hands-on jobs where you start something from, let's say, near scratch, not exactly a blank piece of paper or a blank screen, but when you start from near the scratch and get to a result, this is where you develop your detail knowledge and knowledge of details and becoming more and more detailed orientated as an engineer. Now, again, as a disclaimer, you need to differentiate between knowing the details and communicating about the details in every opportunity. That is what throws off people. So we need to be aware of that as well in our communications as engineers. Not everybody is interested in the detail. Not every detail matters, is very contextual. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the circumstance. And this is where we need to be aware of as engineers and learn to navigate, let's say. Right, how to find out if you're detail orientated? Well, very simply, again, my favorite thing, which is question myself, ask myself questions. How often do you notice little things and little, let's say, errors, mistakes, or how often do you pay attention to the small details? Do you find that in yourself, or are you a person more like me who's interested in the big picture and really gets bored with the little details, really finds them difficult to work on and manage? That's just my nature. And of course, how often can you spot something that looks out of place, whether it's misaligned or misplaced, or something hidden that might come up later and peep out and just cause um, an issue or a problem. So let's take some questions. I think we are. Where are we now? We are um, 38 minutes in. Someone is sending me saying, "How are you?" I'm fine, thank you. We want technical questions, please. Nothing against being polite, of course, but feel free to send a technical question. So, someone is saying the importance of BIM as an electrical engineer. So, of course, it's very important. We talked about that before. I think that learning BIM, building information management, is very important. We need to be able to navigate and work within a CDE, a common data environment. You need to know, if, of course, especially if you're working in the UK, and I think in the Middle East as well, you need to understand the different BIM levels, the compliance needed, and the governance needed at each of these levels, the details expected at each of these levels, and how the process flows, in terms of information exchange, in terms of how a solution is put together. So these are all very, very important aspects, and you need to learn them, of course. And I encourage anybody, whether you're entry level, whether you are mid level as an engineer or an experienced principal engineer, to take a course in BIM and just get up to speed with BIM. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Now, next question is networking essential in career growth? Yes, 100%. 100%. It is essential. And how to expand your network as a fresh engineer and a newbie in career. So, there are, again, there's a video that I've published before, which tells you more and more about networking. I think it was the last video, if I'm not mistaken. Can someone correct me, please, in the comments? I think it was the last video. Yeah, last week we talked about networking. Probably last week, yes. So go back to that and just watch it and ask any further questions if you want. But as a fresh engineer, as an entry level engineer, there are institutes out there and professional bodies that you could basically subscribe to, and I think they make it very, very affordable and very discounted for engineers who are young or under a certain number of years in terms of experience, in terms of professional experience. So you could always subscribe to those. And I think there is the Seagray NGN, I think. Now again, I really like the Seagray. I think it offers a lot of good information. It offers a lot of good technical publications, but it also offers a lot of good opportunities and useful opportunities to network and meet different people, new people, people in your industry, especially in the energy industry. So by all means, check those organizations out and be engaged with them. But also within your current workplace, try to reach out to people who could help you, whom you could learn from, and people who are happy and open to mentor you as a young engineer and get you some of their experience and exchange ideas and guide you, give you some insights and mentorship, because that could be a huge shortcut and a huge opportunity for you. Okay. Taha says note keeping is the catalyst for analytical thinking. Capture organized form is rather wishful than analytical. That's what I learned from your previous session. Okay, good, great. Yes, so note keeping, people who know me and work with me know that I am obsessed with keeping notes. I keep notes in different forms, in different types, and different ways. I like to write. I'm obsessed with writing. I sometimes can write about situations or how the day is going or whatever. I just if I find an opportunity, I will write. And sometimes, I wake up and my mind is dry. I've got nothing to say or write, which is fine. So you gotta also take it easy on yourself. So try to my advice would be to try and keep it simple, keep it easy, keep it accessible for you. If you're taking notes on your phone, that would be more than easy and accessible and enough. If you like the feeling of writing with a pen and scratching on a paper, do that. If you're a more visual person, you can use mind maps. So there are plenty of ways, and I'll try to explore them in the future. Right. So let's go back to, if you have any questions, just keep them coming. We will now go back to our successful features of engineers. And number 3 would be creativity. Now, the problem with this one is that there is not a very, very accurate definition for it. People might think of it in different ways, which is all right. And also, engineers can sometimes feel that they are uncreative. As a matter of fact, most of the population would maybe feel they're not creative. A lot of people feel they're not creative. But creativity is simpler than we think. And of course, there are levels of creativity. But we're talking about mainly generating original and new ideas. Now, it hasn't, it doesn't have to be something that is, a patent or something that makes you a millionaire, but it can be as simple as new ways of working. It can be as simple as finding something that can be done differently that helps you and your colleagues and the company, or helps you in your work. And usually, what I found from experience, creativity comes from combining two or more things together that haven't been combined before, or maybe combined in a different way this time. And these two things can be related, unrelated, but this is where I feel creativity is. Now, the engineers who are creative are usually the ones who are able to find solutions to different, diverse situations and challenges and problems. It's just as simple as that. So, if we take an example of somebody who's able to find a way to quickly resolve something on site, or if you are, the other day, someone in my team came up with a tool based on Microsoft Power Apps. So it's not, but they came up with a very very helpful and useful solution to help us shorten the time needed to find a certain piece of information that we tend to be searching for, and then sometimes we take longer than we have, so or than we are able to afford. So they found a solution to that problem. So brilliant. So that's creative. That's creativity. And this is where the different people can be or set themselves apart from competition, and that's creativity. So creativity can play that role. Now, when you're creative, or let's say when you're not creative, the biggest obstacle becomes, again, becoming stuck at new situations, not able to move past new challenges, not able to show that you're a good problem solver. On the other hand, the benefits would be that you're able to just overcome more and more problems, more and more new obstacles, and move forward, move further, improve ways of working. And this is all, again, well, all these things will result in you advancing in your career and widening your prospects, and gaining more opportunities normally. If you are able to solve more problems, you're able to do more, and you're able to do and deliver bigger projects and bigger assignments, and you're just more valuable as an employee. It's I know some people frown upon these words, but you're more, yourself, your worth as an employee and as a problem solver becomes more and more and higher, and that's what creativity is. And of course, people who tend to overthink creativity, or feel that they're not creative, or just get overwhelmed when they face something new, they struggle. And this is where it becomes a challenge for them. And this is where a lot of people miss out on opportunities to grow. So, when you're trying to learn creativity, again, one of the problems can be that you don't know where to start. You are probably feeling that you're not creative. But on the contrary, I believe that we're all born with a creative flair. We're all born, with the ability to approach things from different angles. And I think that we need just to develop this. So the right thing would be to approach it with, again, one of those training courses out there, and always exploring new ways of working, trying to widen your interests outside of what you do in work. So try to find things that are interesting outside of your line of work, even if they feel, unrelated, or they seem unrelated to what you do. That will be even better, because trust me, when you dive into things that are not related to what you do on a day-to-day basis and widen your perspective and open up your eyes to new things and things that you haven't known about before, necessarily known about before, or learned before, or experienced before, then that will build your creativity acumen, that will spark your sense of creativity. So, again, to learn how to be creative, you probably will need to understand more on creativity in a practical setting. And this can come again in training courses, of course, but as I said, it comes from extracurricular activities and always being curious and learning about how other, let's say, industries have approached and solved problems, and trying to get inspiration from that. Try to combine and think of different things together in different ways. So, let's say you've got a problem or a challenge at work where you are losing time or making a certain mistake repeated repetitively, then you probably need to, or a good thing could be to look into a tool that you have that can solve that. Try to see how all other people are solving other or similar kinds of problems and take inspiration from that. So this is all, of course, creativity. And where can creativity be developed? I believe creativity can be developed in difficult and challenging, not perhaps difficult is the right word, but challenging and less straightforward circumstances and environments. So if there is an environment that is challenging, that is giving people the opportunities to come up with new ideas, organizations that afford or can afford their employees and people to invest time, effort, and even money into finding new ways of work and finding better ways to approach something or approach a challenge, and learn how to better it. These are the places that engineers will grow their creativity. And of course, the best place to learn how to be creative is where you have problems under some kind of pressure, which for me is site. Being on site will help you. Being on site will help you develop a lot of these creative abilities. This is where you are under some sort of pressure within constraints, within a lot of constraints, with a lot of different, sometimes conflicting priorities, and you're up against something that needs to be accomplished. And this is where you force your skills and brain power and capacity to the limit and find that solution. And when you find that solution, you'll find that your brain was capable and was always capable of finding a creative solution. So, again, these are all, I believe, the good environments for learning how to be creative and becoming creative. And as I said, take interest in things outside of your work, which could feel like different, new, unusual for you. Learn new things, read about how other industries and how other people are solving problems. This can be very, very beneficial, because it just trains your brain to find new ways of working and finding new ways or new connections between aspects that could be different. My last, because we are now approaching the hour mark, the 1 hour mark, but the last trait and personality feature that I find in successful engineers, especially those who grow and progress into develop into leadership roles is their self-confidence, their confidence in themselves. Okay, and put very simply, it's about the belief in yourself, the belief in your abilities, the belief in your judgment, and the belief in your capacity to carry out a certain task or job. And I think from what I feel, it does sound a bit foolish to have confidence in yourself, I know, but I think a little more confidence in yourself will help you. Now, I'm not asking you to be arrogant or to be full of yourself or to avoid being or to not be humble. That's on the contrary. I think self confidence comes with humility, comes with the sense of humbleness. And being confident in yourself in the right way, for me, means that you are aware that you will try your best to make it work. You'll try your best to find the right thing or the right way. Good to see you again. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And an example for that, do you find, I mean, you put yourself up for a job where, which, you don't feel necessarily 100% ready for, but one that you feel you'll be able to adapt quickly on, learn seamlessly and swiftly on. So these are signs that self confidence is something you have. So, how often do you say yes to new, let's say, risky opportunities that take you outside of your comfort zone? Now, the benefits of having self confidence or confidence in yourself and in your abilities is that you grow easily, naturally, you grow quicker. You lead, you just find yourself leading as an engineer. When you have that confidence, people will follow you. Engineers and people on projects will come to you for guidance, for direction. And you develop, of course, very, very quickly when you have confidence in your abilities. Because, excuse me, because you develop quickly when you have confidence in your abilities, because you bet on yourself and you bet on your ability. So you get more done and you get more involved. On the other hand, not a lot of people have confidence in themselves, in their abilities, in their um, skills, or in their judgment. And this is because they might fear failure. So they might not want to try something they are unsure of its results, because they might worry that they, are perceived as failing, or they might also worry of the feeling of failing. Perhaps they've experienced that feeling or think they have experienced that feeling, and they might avoid at all costs, avoid repeating it at all costs. And a lot of us as well, and this is very normal, this is very human, but a lot of us fear the fear the sense of judgment. So a lot of us fear being judged by others, and that's also normal. Uh, but a lot of that feeling can alter and affect our confidence in ourselves. So some might fear that they can be judged by others, and a lot of people care too much about what others might think of them. In my opinion, that is something that you need to deal with and try to minimize the amount of bandwidth you give to when you're thinking. So, when you're thinking of how people think of you or perceive you or judge you, I believe, yes, it's normal to think of that and to worry about that to an extent. But on the other hand, it's not really wise to give it a lot of time and a lot of effort to keep thinking about what people might perceive or how people might judge you. It doesn't really matter. in the grand scheme of things, and it will stop you going further and pushing yourself. So sure, worry for some time, but put it aside and carry on, because a lot of people, most people are either supportive. Many people can be nice. Many people, we're overestimating or overthinking of the amount of time people might spend thinking of us or what we do. So fear of judgment, just leave it aside. Don't worry about what people think of you. Do your own thing anyway. And of course, some people might lack that self confidence as engineers because they want to confirm, they want to fit in, they don't want to be perceived as the odd one out or whatever, which is of course something that a lot of us think of. Of course, it's normal. But when we're trying to learn how to become confident, we might really be set back by a lot of the drop offs and hiccups in life and in our work. That could, if you do something, let's say, and there's mistakes in what you created as an engineer, or you know um, if you deliver a design and there's a lot of comments on it, or if you end up on site and there's problems to solve that are related to your work, that could set us back. That could make us feel a bit negative, and eventually might, if we're not careful, lead us to doubt our ability. And of course, there is a very well known phenomenon called the imposter syndrome, where real people question our abilities and levels of competence. So we question ourselves, we question our level of competence, and that's an imposter. It's called the imposter syndrome. So try to avoid it, but look it up and learn about it, because it's important to learn how to deal with it and how to avoid feeling that way. And in order to increase the confidence in yourself as an engineer, you want to be taking small steps. You want to be taking, even smaller, manageable steps to get things done in, not all at once, in smaller increments, and encourage yourself continuously to try new things, to try new ideas, to try new experiences, because that's how we grow, and that's how we learn, and that's how we increase our confidence in our abilities. And of course, occasionally you have to, be, let's say, brave and push yourself to get out of your competence zone, not comfort zone, but competence zone. So, what you feel you know and what you feel you're capable of, try to get out of that and try something that you might not feel as strongly about as your core competence. Of course, to develop self confidence, you need to be in a safe environment, you need to be in a psychologically safe working environment, with engineering leaders around you who encourage you to increase or grow and increase your self confidence, and those who recognize you, those who appreciate you, encourage you continuously, but also are honest with you, and who could give you useful and direct and positive constructive guidance. But also, of course, the successful leaders in business are the ones who are taking interest in developing others, that's for sure. So you want to be around those people as well. Now, if you want to find out if you are confident or not, there are many, many personality tests that you could take, and look them up. So there's plenty of them. I think I like a personality test online, which is called 16 Personalities. I really find it interesting. But that's one thing that you could try and find out yourself. But you could always also ask yourself: do you shy away? Do you tend to be the person or the engineer who shies away from new situations or unclear situations? It's very important, because I remember I was driving to site one day and my boss was with me, and on the way we found, like, when rain just basically gathers and covers a part of the road. So it was a bit like a puddle, a big puddle. Now I actually came to that puddle, and I've noticed that sometimes I sometimes can drive just straight through that puddle, but on that certain occasion I stopped before the puddle, and it was safe to stop. So there wasn't a problem. We were the only people on the side road, but I just stopped at the puddle to think about it. And that got me thinking, is it a matter of you stopped because you're not confident on what you're going to drive through? Or did you stop to think more and give yourself more and more an opportunity or more time to think of what is ahead? And I think that's important. I think that you need to be aware and conscious of not confusing the not hesitant, not being hesitant, but basically giving yourself enough time. There's nothing wrong with that. Give yourself enough time, and that's part of being confident as well, and will help you become more confident to differentiate between actually giving yourself enough time to study, taking a certain decision, and then taking the decision and committing and believing in yourself, versus hesitating and or foolishly driving through a puddle. So you never know what's hiding below that water. So, or whether you're going to damage your car. Okay, so do not shy away from that feeling, but at the same time, be conscious of it. And you'll never be totally ready, and you will never be 100% ready. So try to learn from these situations and just take the decision and commit and move forward and deal with feedback and deal with whatever learnings you get out of a situation. This is why we're here. We're here to live and learn and experience new things and enjoy our work. Right. Is there any other questions before we call it a day? I think we covered 4 traits. So I wanted to cover more than 10, but I ended up covering 4, which is fair enough. I hope that was useful. There are a lot, of course, more to cover, and perhaps for another day we will talk about. The thing is that each of these traits, each of these personality features deserve its own hour to talk about. But again, let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. Please just write them down in the comments now. I will take another 5 minutes to answer any questions I get live, or any requests for guidance, or if you're asking about any particular thing, or if you have any suggestions or ideas, let me know in the comments. Tell me if you found today useful. You can watch my other videos on, the other topics, of course, on Substack and on YouTube and LinkedIn. And please, please, please keep learning. Please keep, stay curious. It's the only way, or it's the best way to grow. And you can always come back to watch this recording, and you could always find it on Substack, of course. Today we've discussed a number of personality traits that make engineers more successful. We went through defining each of these traits, the importance of them in terms of obstacles and in terms of the benefits that we gain or engineers gain. And we've also touched upon how to learn them, and we've also talked about the right environment to learn them and to pick up these personality traits to become more successful and grow in our careers. And also we have, or in addition to that, we've also touched upon asking ourselves questions to try and find out whether we do have these traits or not. So thank you very much. Before I go, I need your help. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for videos and for topics that you want me to explore. I would really appreciate it. I'm always looking for new ideas. I'm always looking for suggestions And as always, keep your questions coming. Thank you so much again. I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have.